Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final edition of First Impressions. That's right, it's leader number 9. The stable is full and Gathering Storm is ready to launch. We are less than 9 days from the release, and I am so excited to dive into this expansion and start to bring you guys mountains of content. Before we dive right into the analysis, I just want to let you guys know exactly what you can expect from me starting February the 14th. I will be streaming and recording first look playthroughs with all of the new leaders, and I plan to do 3 per week for the first 3 weeks so I can get all 9 leaders done extremely quickly. I will get them uploaded to YouTube as fast as I can for you guys to enjoy. In addition, the game of the week will continue with playthroughs from some of the pre-Gathering Storm civilizations, which are getting a facelift during the expansion. So there's a number of civilizations they've talked about during this release time, and they're talking about different abilities that are going to change for some of them. So any of those ones that are getting significant changes, we will dive in and take a look at those as well during the Game of the Week playthroughs, which will continue on a weekly basis. Finally, you can expect a breakdown video of all of the new Gathering Storm features. So however many features there are, expect that many videos. We're going to do a guide on how to use these functions to your to implement them into your strategy and take advantage of them no matter what level you're playing at. And also, I'm planning to do a full set of tutorials on the channel as well to help everyone from beginners to Civilization 6 to experienced Civilization players. So there'll be all kinds of content coming out to help tutorial-wise, to help you with Gathering Storm, and to see a playthrough of all the new civilizations and all the changes that are coming down the pipe. So, if you have not already, do not forget to hit that subscribe button so you are prepared to catch all of the content in the coming weeks and months. Now, on to First Impressions. And for those of you who are new to the channel today and you are not aware, there is a link down below in the description which you can follow in order to see all of my First Impression videos of all of the new civilizations that will be coming with Gathering Storm. So be sure to check that out when you're done with this one. Now, on to our final leader, and it's Eleanor of Aquitaine, or however you're going to say that, and she leads both England and France. I think a number of us saw this coming. People kind of had an idea that this was going to be the case, and it's an interesting ability that she's coming with here. Personally, leading up to this, discussing it, I kind of was hoping that maybe she would have some sort of an ability to maybe switch between the two at some point during the game, whether it's like back and forth or at least one switch at some point. Basically being able to switch her allegiance, if you will. Because, I don't know, I just thought that would be kind of an interesting mechanic to add to the game. But unfortunately, we're not going to see anything like that, doesn't look like. But an interesting mechanic nonetheless. Let's take a look at it. Great works in Eleanor's cities each cause -1 loyalty per turn in foreign cities within 9 tiles. A city that leaves another civilization due to a loss of loyalty and is currently receiving the most loyalty per turn from Eleanor's civilization skips the free city step to join this civilization. So that's some interesting stuff. Let's break it down real quick. So that's each individual great work. Now, my first thought on this was, well, it's going to take so many pieces of great work to actually flip a city. Because if you're talking about a city that's at full, like, let's say, plus 20 loyalty per turn, then you're going to have at least 20 great works within 9 tiles of that city just to get it to flip. And so I was kind of thinking, well, like that's going to be super late game before you even come close to that. And I think it's probably going to be a very kind of situational thing where maybe you can get it to work, maybe you can't. If you get a close neighbor, maybe you get 2 or 3 cities nice and close by. Maybe if you can correspond with a golden age when they're in a dark, or maybe even a standard age versus their dark. Maybe you've got enough so that city's just kind of barely holding on, and then the great works maybe you can kind of focus that city to have the great works push it over the edge. It's probably going to be a little bit further down in the game when you start to get your museums. Maybe you've got 4 or 5 great works in 2 or 3 or 4 cities that are all within 9 tiles. Then you could probably start to see some of this flip. I think you're going to have to be one of those. It's going to be one of those abilities you're going to have to play with and actually physically see it happening to see how much of an impact it's going to be. Certainly, it's going to be very situational. It'll obviously be during a culture run where it's only really going to be effective, because in any other run, you're probably not going to get enough great works to move around. Obviously, you can also get things like Hermitage and Bolshoi and all those different kinds of things that can hold extra great works. You can make sure you get those built in the cities kind of right towards the borders of your enemies, so, or other civilizations, not that they're necessarily your enemy. So then you'll be able to have a whole bunch of those great works and maybe play with this mechanic. It might be just a fun run to see how many cities you can flip. Just make it your only objective to flip cities. Could be a lot of fun. Super useful. Situationally in culture games only, probably. Other games, it's obviously not going to have much of an ability, so it's very unique, very situationally specific, but pretty cool nonetheless. Now, let's take a look at what else she will come with. So I had to get a little bit on the fly here this morning to find a way to show you guys. So let's take a quick look. I've basically done a little cut of the abilities that you're going to see depending on which civilization you choose. So I'm not going to go through these super specific. Everyone's kind of seen these for the most part, and they're quite old. Everyone kind of knows what they are. So, but really quickly here, France. They of course get 20% production towards medieval, Renaissance, and industrial era wonders. Tourism from wonders of any era are doubled. And the Grand Imperial, French unique industrial units, plus 10 combat strength when fighting on your capital's continent. And then the Great General points for killing units as well. We all know about that. And then the Chateau is a pretty solid unique tile improvement. Gives lots of culture. You can line it up with some of your luxuries and wonders. It gives some bonuses as well, which is kind of cool. So pretty solid all-around civilization abilities with France. A pretty good solid unit. The ability to build wonders. Obviously, France is built around a culture victory, so she kind of corresponds pretty well to play with France. Because you're going to be able to build those wonders, particularly those wonders that can store extra great works. So if you do a culture-focused game and a great works-focused game, you might be able to use her mechanic a little bit better with France, I feel, than you might with England. So there's those abilities broken down there. And then if you just give me one moment here, let's bring up England's abilities. The Workshop of the World. So this is actually a new ability for England's ability. They actually took out, which was probably one of the most potent abilities that any civilization had. Previously, I wasn't a big fan of England, Victoria of England at all, really, other than the fact that she had the British Museum. And if you utilize the British Museum properly, it was off the charts strong. I actually did a Game of the Week playthrough with Victoria a few months ago. You can check it out if you want to take a look for the through the playlist and stuff. You can check that one out. And I just wanted to display the ability, the incredible ability of that British Museum. It's just, if you use it quick before you get Gathering Storm, you've got a few days left. Go out and grab it if you haven't before. Try it out. It's just ridiculous amounts of tourism. It's incredibly valuable to have those immediately themed with 6 artifacts. It's just. Oh, just go play with it if you haven't. But anyway, they're taking it out, maybe because it was too overpowering, but also because I think this is one of the civs that they wanted to bring in some of the new features that are going to be added in Gathering Storm. So taking a look at this Workshop of the World here, iron and coal mines accumulate +1 more resources per turn. As well, 100% production towards military engineers. And military engineers receive +2 charges. So we know that military engineers are going to have a little bit more value in the upcoming expansion. They're going to be building railroads and stuff that's going to help you with movement and with improving your trade routes and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of value in those military engineers coming up now, and it's going to get some extra charges, which is going to be good value. And also the extra resources, being able to trade those away can have value. Obviously in a military game, perhaps having the extra iron might be able to facilitate a bigger army that you can run with. So it's some extra little abilities there and there. It's some of it you're going to have to play the game because it's Gathering Storm related in order to get a really good idea of how good they are. But it seems pretty solid. And then the big one I actually like, which is quite nice, is buildings that provide additional yields when powered receive +2 of that yield. So what that means is any of the later game buildings that go inside districts that require power will get additional yield of that type. So a research lab, unpowered, is going to only give you 3 science. But if it's fully powered, it's going to give you an extra 5 for a total of 8, which is great. You're going to want to make sure you've got power in your cities when you're doing a late game science or culture run. But with England, you're actually going to get +2 extra yield of that type. So a research lab's actually going to give you 10 science when fully upgraded, and a broadcast center is going to be a 10 culture instead of 8. Which is, I mean, it's an extra, well, it's 25% extra. But when you start thinking about it, if you've got 10 or 12 cities, maybe, and you've got a research lab in every one later in the game, that's going to be 20 extra science. That's not a ton of science late in the game when the stuff's super expensive, but it's something. And then you can start to throw bonuses on that. So if you have Kilwa with an extra couple science city-states under your control, then you're going to get 15% bonus on that. If you've got Geneva, that's another 15% on top of that. If you're ecstatic, you can add 10% on top of that. So that 20 turns into maybe 30, 35, 40, whatever the case might be, however many cities you have. So again, it's not a massive amount of extra science or culture or gold or whatever building we're talking about, but it's a little bit extra, and it can make the difference of a turn or two here or there to get technologies going and make things speed along. So there is some significance to it. It's a raw amount of science and culture that you're not going to get from a lot of other civs, so you can't complain too much about that. Pretty solid ability. The rest of her abilities, Red Coat, it's pretty strong actually. If you're going for a military victory, and once you get off of your continent and you're starting to take out other civilizations, it comes at a point in the game where you're starting to get into that second half of your military run. That extra 10 combat strength, you could turn them into cores. Throw a general on there. It's pretty strong unit, but also pricey to build. So, yeah, Sea Dog. I mean, it's another unit. Nothing special to say about that. And then the Royal Navy Yard. Never been a really big fan of it. I know that harbors are going to get a little bit better in Gathering Storm because of the way that city-states are going to treat them in that. But generally speaking, the difference between, and I've talked about this many times, the difference between admirals and great merchants are just, the difference is just so big that I just feel it's hard to get into the dockyard thing. And then the abilities of it are just not particularly strong. A little bit extra gold. I just don't feel like there's enough there to make that a super valuable, unique district within the context of the game. So yeah, the abilities of England overall, not spectacular, but I am interested in this Workshop of the World. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. So with that being said, let's transition over to breaking down the numbers and talking a little bit about how she's going to play as both England and France. So, as France, well, let's start first in a word. All right, so let's go this way. In a word, oh, I've hit the wrong numbers, the wrong ones. In a word, loyalty. I think this is quite fitting. Obviously, the ability to shift your loyalty between England and France at the beginning of the game, unfortunately, probably just beginning of the game, so you're going to have to choose. But being able to choose a different side, one way or the other, and obviously her mechanic plays with loyalty probably in a more significant way than any other cities or civilizations mechanics actually do. So as far as the loyalty mechanic goes, she is probably going to have the most unique and probably the strongest ability to manipulate loyalty. So I thought that was a very fitting and apt word. In a number 5. I actually had this as a 6. Just before I started recording, I put it as a 5, and I'm going to tell you why. I think the overall abilities of France and England are pretty similar in the overall rankings. And they're kind of like a middle of the road. Neither one of them have crazy abilities at any one thing. They have a little bit of abilities here and there, but nothing overly strong. And although I like Court of Love, I feel it's more cute than anything, and it's going to be very case specific. In a very particular game, playing in a culture run where you're accumulating tons of great works. Which can be a little bit more difficult if you get into in a deity game. If you get into a tough game like that, they're competing with those great works a lot more. It's harder to accumulate a lot of them, and it's going to be so late in the game before you can start moving these cities over to you. The advantage could be, relatively limited. But I think it's going to be fun. Like, it's going to be interesting to see if you can make it work. So I reserve judgment on that to maybe that it is a little bit better than I'm thinking. But I just feel like it's not quite strong enough to take her beyond a 5 on that case. So, as France, her science ability, I give her a 2 out of 5. And really, the only thing that France really gives you for a science run is just that raw culture from the chateau, which can be of some value, and even like also to build some of the wonders. There's certain wonders that can be valuable in a science run, which will help you out there. So if you combine the ability to get those wonders built a little faster and accumulate that raw culture from the chateau, both can be advantageous towards a science run. But with no actual science abilities, no raw science, I can't really see giving her anything beyond a 2 out of 5 on that. For a culture run, I gave her a 3. You know, I'm back and forth. I think almost it's possible if you really do put together a really good run on Deity and you're not getting too much competition with the Great Works, that her Court of Love could actually help you start making other civilization cities flip to you. If you can make that work well enough, you mix it in with a chateau and lots of wonders. You know, they're maybe a borderline 4. But my one thing with this is that at this point in the game, we don't know if there's going to be any changes as of Gathering Storm. We're not anticipating any. But unfortunately, wonders just don't create that much tourism. They just don't. In this game, IRL, sure they do. In this game, they just, compared to like even national parks, compared to Great Works, they don't create nearly as much tourism. I've done France runs and built as many wonders as I could. And you look at it, and at the end of the game, the wonders are still only giving you 2 or 3 or maybe 4 tourists per, and it's just not enough to make them super powerful in a tourism culture game. So I feel like that's fair. Now on the military side, I give them a 3 as well. The Grand Imperial, a pretty solid unit. It's not particularly strong at taking over cities because its combat strength bonus is when it's fighting on its own continent. So you start to lose that a little bit, but the great general points are very helpful. And like I said, it is a solid unit. If you can plan your battles around, you know, taking over any civilizations on your own continent when this unit comes around later in the game, it can be of use that way. But the biggest thing for her militarily is just the ability to move. You're gonna have to get a move quick. You know, if you can't move quickly, to take some of the off-continent stuff, you know, maybe the 3 is actually a little heavy. You know, it's funny. I actually took the 3 from the original France evaluation, but of course she doesn't have the ability to get the extra civilization like the what do you call it? The ability to see what the other people are doing. Anyway, they don't have that ability to get the extra visual, and so that extra combat bonus isn't going to be there. So this might actually be heavy. I kind of feel like even as I'm looking at this, is probably a 2. Because the Grand Imperial is not enough to really make it a 3. But I can reserve judgment on that one until another time. And then finally, on the religious side, there's nothing here for religion. Even the ability to build the wonders isn't going to help you because all the good religious wonders come before that. And, you know, the raw culture is a little bit late to help you get through the culture tree and a religious run as well. So nothing there. Now, quickly moving along before this thing gets way too long. England, playing as England, Science Victory, I'm giving them a 3 out of 5. It's kind of, I don't know. I feel like this is all coming from Workshop of the World. I feel like the extra coal and iron might actually have some really significant value as the resource system comes online. The extra military engineer stuff is going to be a little ability. And then the extra power to give you extra yields. So you're going to be extra science, extra culture late in the game when you really need it. I just felt like a 3 out of 5 was a really solid 3 out of 5 for them on science. Culturally, I mean, you're going to get that little bit of raw culture from your like broadcast centers late in the game, and maybe some of the resources and stuff can be of value in trade and stuff like that to help a culture game. But mostly, they don't really have any advantage now towards anything culturally because they've taken away the British Museum. So they've been downgraded to a 2 out of 5. Where else are we? Yeah, military. Here we go. I've given them a 3 out of 5 here on military. I think, you know, the extra iron might actually give you the ability to do a little bit bigger army early on in the game with swordsmen or even knights. So that there might be an ability there to possibly push you that way. And then, of course, the red coat is actually a really solid unit for taking out other cities. Once you get onto the other continents and start taking them out, like I mentioned, you can make these into corps or even down the road armies. Put a general on them. They have a lot of bonuses. They're pricey to build, like I said, but not too big a deal. And then religion, same thing. No significant value whatsoever in a religion game, so no surprise there. So there you have it. Yeah, I feel like I've got the wrong number on the military France. There's no reason why there are 3 without that special ability. I should have actually changed that to a 2, and I didn't. I apologize. Pretend it's a 2 on France because, like I said, the Grand Imperial solid, but that's the only thing they've really got, and it's not going to be all that spectacular. So that's it. We've seen them all, folks. That's 9 new leaders. I hope you enjoyed this. Eleanor of Aquitaine. Going to be really interesting. I'm curious about whether you guys like them as an England side or a France side. Let me know what you think about that loyalty system. Leave your comments down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to be ready for all the content that's going to be hitting the channel in the next coming weeks. And hit the like button to help a guy out. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time. And bye-bye.